This just in, a 7.9 magnitude earthquake has struck the city of Wenchuan in Sichuan, China, leaving 87,000 dead and thousands more grieving. 375,000 people were injured, and so were their homes. Sichuan's infrastructure was completely ruined by the earthquake. 6.5 million buildings toppled, and nearly 4 times as many were heavily damaged, this being 4/5 of the buildings that take up Sichuan, as well as other places such as the southern part of Gansu and Shanxi. There were 7,000 schools destroyed and 10,000 damaged total along the Longminshan Fault. Not only this, but there were 34,125 kilometers of damage to highways. This was devastated the Sichuan's economy. All of this costing them around 845 billion RMB, 130 billion US dollars in damages as the total economic loss. We'll get back to the damage in a moment, but first we'll head to our lead scientist on the matter, Dr. Paul.
Thank you, Bob. This tragic event was caused by pressure being built up along the 155-mile-long Longminshan Fault. It was around 19 kilometers below ground near the city of Wenchuan. This affected the provinces of Sichuan, Gansu, and Shanxi. This pressure produced a violent slip in its release, causing the devastating tremor that destroyed most of Sichuan, with powerful aftershocks that have lasted for years. Now, let's go back to Bob.
This earthquake wasn't preventable, but it could have been much better prepared for, especially because of Sichuan's tofu dreg scandal. This resulted in using cheap materials for important buildings such as schools, homes, hospitals, etc. Several construction companies were using unsafe, cheap building materials to save costs and take the money for themselves. This led to shoddy construction of these buildings, leading them to easy collapse. That means there could have been some preventability by building with better materials that would have made it through the earthquake with a much higher survival rate. This earthquake led to over 4 million people being displaced in this horrific tragedy. Schools have been forced to move to temporary shelters and tents to continue their learning, while others have stopped entirely. Nearly 30% of the indigenous Qing has had to relocate, and many places were left as ghost towns. Those unfortunate enough to be displaced are being housed in temporary shelters and Legu refugee camps. But things are starting to look up. The government has taken over the rebuilding efforts and has dubbed it as a government project. Now to Mr. Richards, our head researcher on the rebuilding project.
Thank you, Bob. A 3-year rebuilding plan has been announced. Buildings and roads are going to be brought back better and stronger than ever before. Urban layouts have been optimized and disaster preventions have been greatly strengthened. Stronger materials are also being used instead of the previously tofu dreg construction in buildings and houses. Workable schools and clean hospitals and living homes are the main focus for this rebuilding. So the rebuilding efforts are going to be fantastic. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Now, 16 years after that horrible earthquake, the Sichuan province has transformed itself tremendously. It's built itself back into a much sturdier area with shiny new roads and stronger buildings. In the hard-hit Sichuan County, most survivors have been relocated to new homes only 30 kilometers away from the ruins of a past life that still remain there today. Nearly everyone had the opportunity to return, and most did, except for some of the younger generation and the rural mountain range locals, unfortunately leading to the decline of several cultures. Apart from that though, Sichuan is doing incredibly. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.